This story was not famous in 1915. It became famous a century later. And that changes everything. A Russian fortress, 1915. Chlorine gas. A handful of survivors rising from the trenches and forcing back an army that believed the battle was already over. Today, it is everywhere. YouTube, a Sabaton song, monuments, national memory. But for most of the 20th century, it was rarely used. This is not the story of what those men did. It is the story of what happened to them after. The Soviet Union inherited Osowiec, but it never became part of official memory. The war they fought was the wrong war, the wrong uniforms, the wrong empire, the wrong story. They were not denounced, they were simply not needed. For decades, the story remained at the edges. Then, the system changed. After 1991, a different past became usable. The Tsarist period returned. So did the stories that came with it. Osowiec did not need to be invented. It only needed to be selected. By the 2000s, it reappeared. By 2015, it was a national symbol. Then, in 2019, a Swedish metal band put it on an album about the First World War. A year later, they performed it in Moscow, with a Russian artist singing the verses in Russian. The legend was now global. This is where the story stops being about 1915. The Russian state was already fighting a war in eastern Ukraine that it officially denied. By 2022, the denial ended, and the imagery was already in place. The soldier who does not fall. The body that refuses the limit. The Slavic defender outnumbered and unyielding. It moved into wartime propaganda almost without modification. State television used the language. Pro-war music used the imagery. The dead were now being used to support a new war. Sabaton cut ties with Russia in March 2022 and have not performed the song there since. But you cannot uninvent a legend. The men who held Osowiec were real. The gas was real. The counterattack was real. None of that is the issue. The issue is what happens to a story when it is buried for decades and then exhumed by a state that needs it. The men of Osowiec were erased 3 times. Once by gas, once by silence, once by use. A story does not end where the men died. It ends where the people who own the story decide it should end. The men of Osowiec are still being marched.